previously adjusted this trigger to about 3 pounds and very little take-up or slack. But in the next 10 minutes we're going to just take it to the limit and see what's possible. This is the Zastava CZ99 Precision Rifle, available in 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum, and 17 HMR. This gun's been imported for years under different names such as the Remington Model 5, the Charles DALY Precision, the Mp22. Alright, let's get started. This rifle out of the box had a 5-pound trigger. Decent. We made one adjustment and got it to just under 3 pounds. Took up some of the slack. Now we're going to see what we can do, what the adjustments are capable of. Start by removing your bolt. This job will be a little easier if you have a vise to secure your firearm. It only takes a couple of tools, Allen wrench and a small straight edge screwdriver. Go ahead and remove the trigger guard, 2 Allen head bolts. The front bolt here will be an action screw, and the rear bolt simply secures it to the stock. This complete procedure takes about 10 minutes, and I think you'll find it well worth your time. As you pay attention to these 2 screws we pull out, it's going to be obvious you can't get them mixed up. The wood screw is a very aggressive thread, while the action screw has a shoulder built on it. So remove those, put them to the side. At this time we should be able to pull the trigger guard out of the stock. Careful to not drop the mag release button. This will allow us access to the rear action screw. Take your Allen wrench, remove the rear action screw, carefully supporting the barrel because this is the last step before separating the barrel from the stock. At this time the stock should freely release from the barrel. Put it safely away. Get your barrel in a position where you can work on the trigger assembly. Be on the lookout for a small black sleeve. This is going to be in the stock where the front action screw came through. If it hits the floor, just pick it up and wait for reassembly to make our adjustments. As I told you earlier, we have about just under 3 pounds of trigger pressure right now, and I would like to get that to 2, maybe slightly under 2. I find that to work well for a sporter rifle. And then we're going to take a little bit of additional slack out of the trigger play. Now, as you look at the trigger assembly, there's a small spring that applies tension to the trigger. Under this spring you'll find a small set screw. Clockwise or in on the screw applies more tension. Unscrewing the screw or counterclockwise releases pressure on the trigger. And also there's a small set screw to adjust the take-up or the slack. At this time I want to mention that you can go too soft on the trigger pressure. In other words, if you don't have enough tension, the trigger will not reset and the gun will not be safe. And on this particular firearm I find that to be 1.5 or less is beyond my comfort zone. This gun can be bumped and the trigger engage. So make sure you double check your work when you're finished. I find it helpful to install the bolt The trigger mechanism will work just like it's in the stock. In order to get a feel for the trigger, you will have to cycle the action each time you dry fire. And I suggest doing this several times while looking at the spring. Feel the trigger, feel the slack, push it forward and make sure it doesn't fall or relax on its own. That's an indicator that we do not have enough tension on the spring. Once you've got your spring set, the tension you think is correct, I want you to cycle the action several times. Let's make sure the bolt is secure. A lack of tension on the spring will make the bolt slide out. Now I'm going to pull out the set screw, put a drop of Loctite so that I can put it in there securely. There's not a lot of tension on the spring. The only thing holding it in is going to be the Loctite. And what I found to work best is to run the screw all the way in until it makes contact with the spring. The spring is resting up against the trigger, and I start with about a half a turn. I flip the gun over and see if there's any free play. If there's any free play or looseness, I want to go on in with the screw. I don't want any free play. The trigger has got to reset in the most forward position. It's got to have enough spring tension, in other words, to hold the trigger set forward. If it does not, that bolt will come out. And this may take 2 or 3 tries. Once you think you've got it, go ahead and cycle your action. Dry fire it a couple of times. Adjust as needed. Anytime you're making adjustments, always verify that the safety has not been affected. You can see the safety bar working. There's a chance that you could go you could limit the travel so much that the safety could not engage. So make sure you verify that. Verify that the bolt is snug and secure. Verify that the safety is still in working order. Alright, this feels good. I want to go on to the take-up now. I want to take out the excess slack right before the trigger is engaged. There's another small set screw. You'll access it by looking through the safety bar, and you'll see where it goes up and contacts the bottom of the receiver. In on that screw takes the slack away. You can go too far and have an unsafe trigger, so you will have to verify. That feels pretty good. I have nearly no slack, and I have a crisp, light trigger break. My bolt is good and secure. My safety still works. I believe we're good to go. Now, time for reassembly. All we're going to do is reverse the procedure from disassembly. Grab your stock, line it up. Remember, we have a total of 3 screws. One has to go in before the trigger guard. The last screw we pulled out, that's our rear receiver screw. And it does have a washer on it. So put the screw in the washer in. We're going to snug those down, and you may find on your rifle that different torques can affect the accuracy. I generally start with 20 to 25 inch-pounds. This one has to be torqued before the trigger guard goes on. And also remember, as you're putting your trigger guard on, that the mag release button has to be held as you drop it into place. You don't want it to come free. Do put your sleeve in right before the trigger guard goes on, the front action sleeve. If everything's lined up correctly, the trigger guard should drop right in place and line up. The shoulder bolt goes in the front, the wood screw in the rear. We're going to pull them both down snug, and then I'm going to secure the front action bolt at 20 to 25 inch-pounds, and the same on the wood screw. Now the question is, what did we achieve? Did we get down to our 2-pound goal we were looking for? These guns have a very good trigger, crisp. They vary from model to model, but the creep, I have seen some with a little more, or a little undesirable creep, and they will require a little more work, some polishing. But for the most part, this 10-minute procedure will give you a very good factory trigger. I have shotguns with a $200 trigger assembly in them that didn't feel as good as one of these triggers adjusted out. And as always, remember to verify the safety of your adjustments. Put the gun together, bolt it several times briskly. The bolt should not try to disengage from the receiver. Work your safety several times. It should slide in completely and easily. It can be firm, but you don't want to restrict its travel. And this one feels very good. Safety works properly. The trigger seems to work properly. Feels very good. Alright, let's pull out the gauge and see what we've got. Usually takes a couple of pulls to get an average. 1 pound 13 ounces. Reset, let's do that again. 1 pound 14 ounces. Very good. I believe we've achieved our goal. And I suggest this 10-minute mod to your gun. Thanks for watching. From your friends at Heritage Farms.